All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Alrighty, how's everybody doing today? It's a nice rainy day, but at least it's warm, right? Okay, so, Youn Me This Morning. Over at Youn Me This Morning, I am a segment producer and an on-air personality. And it's really quite the unique combination because, you know, I never really ever set out to be a producer my entire career. My only focus when I was in school and getting out of school was to work on air, which is what I did immediately after school and what I've done for the bulk of my career. In fact, this is the first time I've ever had the title of producer in any part of my title. But the thing about it is, it's really the same thing as being a reporter, except that I'm not on air for every segment. And then it also dives more into the writing aspect of various segments, as well as putting in the graphics and the information that they'll need to actually be able to pull that segment across. So it's really interesting, the road to here. I'm sure like many of your speakers, it's not always a clear path, but somehow you end up where you want to be or where you are. So let's see, I started out as a news reporter. I always wanted to be able to also do feature stories and entertainment stories. I always had a passion for things like fashion and, you know, fluff stuff, I guess you'd say, the fun stuff. I always saw myself maybe working on a fun morning show or an entertainment show, working red carpets, that sort of thing. And I didn't quite know how I would ever get there or if I would ever get there. But I knew one thing I had to do was know how to write and know how to present myself on camera if that was what I wanted to do. So that journey started pretty early on. I went to the U of I in Champaign, where I got my bachelor's degree in journalism, broadcast journalism. And it's funny because when I was in journalism class, I didn't really know as an 18-year-old going away to college, I didn't know that it was so news. Because I wasn't what I would consider at the time like a news junkie, you know, and I didn't know. But I grew and I developed and I learned the broadcasting style and definitely watching people who I wanted to kind of pattern my career after. You know, of course, the Oprahs and, you know, that sort of thing. So it was always kind of this thing for me, like I said, the news versus the entertainment thing and trying to get there. So I would love when I was a reporter and I could do features. But one of the things is being, while at U of I always knew that I also wanted to go on and get my master's degree. That was something I always wanted to do. I always was kind of big on personal, you know, fulfillment in that area for the education aspect. And people would say, and I'm saying this because there may be people in here who want to go on and get other degrees and things as well. And people would say, well, you won't need that. And I'm like, well, I just kind of want to get it. I don't know, I just want it. So actually, I just finished my master's degree in 2011 at Howard University in Washington, D.C. So it's like my dream school. I always wanted to go there, so it was great for me. And it's in mass communication and media studies, which was different than that journalism aspect because what it did was kind of open my mindset up to the whole concept of mass communication, dealing with radio, TV, you know, the social networks, I mean, all of it and how it all pieces together and how it impacts society. Because when you're a news reporter, you're just thinking about your one little story. You're not so much focused on how it's going to impact society at large. So it really, especially after years and years of being in television, and I have been in TV for 13 years. So going to graduate school after having such a long career in media was just an interesting perspective. So one of the things that was major for me, especially while at U of I for undergrad, kind of backtracking, and throughout, was interning. So I actually started off as an intern in the media relations department at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I interned there for 4 years, every summer and winter break of my life. Now you say, what does that have to do with journalism? Well, you know what, actually it was great because it gave me some insight to the other side of things. And that is so essential because if you choose to work in media, in whichever aspect, you'll likely work with someone in media relations, right? So you should know how to kind of deal with them or what they have to do to get their job done. Or you kind of know the real parameters they're telling you. Like, yeah, you can tell me that. I already know the ins and outs. I've already worked in that area. So that's always great. And then they would pay me, so that was great. So I would always intern there in the summer and winter break. So during the school year, I would intern locally in any way I could. Eventually, I got a chance to intern at the local station, WICD, in the Champaign market, which was great. Which actually later on led to my first job opportunity. When I was graduating, I was so tired of interning. I just really wanted a job. I just wanted to get out there, which is another reason why I didn't go to grad school then, because I was like, it's all about the experience in TV. They don't care about all these degrees. I want to, get my experience. So I ended up getting an opportunity to apply for the Illinois Broadcasters Association had an internship opportunity for minorities. They were only giving away 3 in the state. And I was like, there's no way I'll get this. I'll just, I just need to get a job. I got it. But I didn't know getting that would lead to the first job. So I was, my internship was actually in Springfield. So I interned in Springfield, and it was great because I actually got a chance to be on air. So it's such a benefit to, while we are in a big market like Chicago, it's such a benefit in working in a small market. I do still believe in that. I know the industry is changing, and people have been more capable of kind of jumping to the bigger markets first. And while that's great, I think there's something to be said for starting in Champaign or starting in a smaller market than that, because you get a chance to try and do everything. So it was, at that internship, I ended up, they asked for my tape back in Champaign because I had been doing stories on air while interning in Springfield. And voila, at the end of the summer, they were like, look, we're going to hire you for one of 2 positions. So that led to my first job in Danville, Illinois. How many people have heard of Danville? Yes. So I was in Danville for about 3 years. I was the bureau chief, the Vermilion County bureau chief. So I covered news for the entire county. It'd be like covering news for Cook County. Good times, just me and a photographer. Yep, on M2 equipment. Anybody know what M2 is? Exactly. It's that old. It preceded me. And so the bureau had it. And thankfully, the only thing I didn't do at the bureau was edit. Oh, wait, let me go back. No, the only thing I didn't do at the bureau was set up my live shots and shoot. I did edit, I wrote, I found the stories, produced the stories essentially, and we would have these phone calls for the morning meeting. I was never at the morning meeting because I wasn't at the main station. So that's an interesting way to start your career, not at the main station, because you're kind of needing probably some of the support, but you got to kind of figure it out. And that's kind of been my career, sink or swim. So it's been good though, because I've been able to swim, thank God. And so from Danville, I got an opportunity to go to Baton Rouge. So I was like, when they called, I'm like, where's that? Like, can you just, I knew it was the capital of Louisiana, but I was like, where in Louisiana, right? Because I'm from Chicago. So I went to Baton Rouge. Then from there, New Orleans. Then from there, Katrina hit. Yeah, so I was a news reporter when Hurricane Katrina hit. I was actually covering people as they were going into the Superdome. And none of us knew how bad Katrina would be. I mean, because if we had, we obviously would have prepared a little better. I would have gotten more of my clothes, more of my possessions, my things. I lost everything. So I kind of had to start over in 2005. I ended up, I worked with, I came back to Chicago and I freelanced. It was the first time in my career I'd ever freelanced. So I was a little nervous about that. I had always had a full-time job, which was a blessing. And so I went on to CLTV, and I ended up freelancing with them in news. Then I saw they had an entertainment reporter freelance position, and I worked up the nerve, and I went in because I was like, I'm just lucky to be here. I went in, and I got a chance to find out about that. Well, some changes were made right before they were about to start the new show, Metro Mix. How many people remember Metro Mix? And so from Metro Mix, I didn't know. I got a call one day from the program director, like, look, the person who had this job is going over to the next job, Leanne Trotter. She was going over to NBC. So we have an opening and we need somebody ASAP. Can you audition for this? I ended up becoming the entertainment host and producer, not producer, but reporter on the show. There starts my entertainment career. How many years in was that? but I kind of had to pay the dues, move around before I could do some things in the other area that I had an interest in besides, doing traditional news. So I worked as an entertainment reporter, and then I went to Atlanta, and I worked for the ABC there where I did news and entertainment. And then after that, the economy kind of went. So I used that as an opportunity to go back to school and get my master's degree. And after I finished, while I was at Howard, the folks here in Chicago at WCIU, I had met some people here, and I started freelancing with them while I was still in graduate school. So I freelanced with WCIU from 2010 to 2011, so like over a year, and finally came on in 2012. So last year I started with them full time. So I told you that long story about my background, just so you could kind of get an idea of the life of a reporter or an on-air personality. So I've lived in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm counting Chicago twice. I've moved that many times, and that didn't include college. When you move for college.
You can't make it in this field unless you leave Chicago. Is what it sounds like.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you can't make it, because I work with the people every day who have started in this field. I mean, a couple of producers have not left Chicago. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I think there's value to going to a smaller market and working your way back up. Because when I was in Danville, I may have made some mistake that if I had made it in Chicago, I'd probably never have a job again. Or if you make that mistake in New York or LA, everybody kind of gets the markets, right, and how they work. In fact, I printed a list. Hopefully you'll go to, how many people know tvjobs.com? Okay. That was one of my things I would do in undergrad, and someone got coffee on it, so I hope you can't see it. It was on the printer and they pulled it off. Thanks. They list all the markets for you on tvjobs.com, and for me that was a big thing. I was always looking on there because I said, where can I live that's doable for me, I think, and where do I want to be? So I would literally go on this thing, and there are 210 markets. There used to be 212, so 210 markets. And I was like, all right, I think I could live in this place, this place. I'd highlight where I thought I could live. And then I would actually look for jobs in those places because I thought I could, I thought I can survive in, let me see, I could live in Rockford. I could live in maybe Sioux City. You know what I'm saying? So you don't want to necessarily go someplace that you're like, ooh. But again, some people don't have to ever leave. And that's great if you don't, right? If you're from here and your family's here, you don't have to make a big change in your life. It's great. But for my career, and for most reporters, you do need to leave. And it's really because that's your training ground, sort of, It's a really good opportunity for that. One of the things I didn't say was that while at Howard, one of the things that I found to be of value these days, while at Howard, especially at this part of my career, I taught public speaking. So getting my graduate degree for me opened the door for me to be able to teach in our field, in communications. So I taught public speaking for the 2 years I was there. Last year, I taught at the city colleges. And that's been such a benefit to me because when you are in television, and I didn't realize this when I first started out, a lot of people have a lot of jobs in this business. Do you recognize that, or have you seen that? Yeah, so people were like, yeah, I'm a news reporter, but I also have my own this, or, oh, I'm also working on this project, or I do voiceovers, or I do that, because the reality is sometimes this business doesn't pay that great, especially when you're in one of these small markets. It takes you a while. I think my first job, I made $18,000 a year.
What?
Yeah.
What year was
That was 99. Yeah, I don't think people are making that much more these days in that. Because, the supply is outweighing the demand. But I will say this, even though I was just making that, I was living an interesting life, and I always have. I mean, I've gotten a chance to interview mayors and government officials and all sorts of celebrities, anybody I could think of just about. I mean, from Al Green to, oh my gosh, the list is so big. Sanaa Lathan a couple of times. You name the person, I probably can say, yeah, I've interviewed them. And that for me is so rewarding and been self-fulfilling. One of the things about being a news reporter that I enjoy, and also doing entertainment, and just being in this field, is the information you can give people. So for me, some people say, oh, they may think entertainment is kind of fluffy, but I see it as, you know, that little bright spot in your day. You know what I mean? Like, we got this reality out here of so much going on in the world. But the great thing about a fun morning show or a fun TV program, I think, is that, hey, it gave you something to think about maybe and smile about throughout the day. Like, did you hear that crazy water cooler story that I heard on the show? Oh my gosh. Did you see those celebrity fashion? I want that. That little outfit would make me feel good for the day. So it's just, you know, that little cute, you know what I mean? It's just like a cute little addition to your day. It's not to say there aren't real problems going on, but it's just another aspect of life. Life isn't all bad, right? And life isn't, you know, all great, but there are great aspects of it. And so for me, that's what entertainment news is. It's kind of the fun, it's a little like a movie. You kind of go to a different place when you're in a movie. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this career. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that I've been able to add teaching and giving back to people in that capacity. And it's also just great to know you also have something else to fall back on, even as you grow throughout the career. So it's really been a blessing.
So does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Where do you teach your public speaking classes at?
I taught, I'm not necessarily, okay, I'm not teaching right now, but I mean, it's summertime, but I taught at Daly and I taught at Malcolm X in Chicago. Public speaking.
Public speaking.
It's weird because I've never taught broadcasting. Isn't that crazy? But the funny thing about that is backtracking. I won my first speech contest when I was 8, which kind of gave me the realization that my voice could move people. Your voice has power, you know? And I think that's what teaching public speaking has also shown me. Anyone else?
I have
Okay,
a question
yes.
for you. Okay, we saw this segment.
Yes.
How much of this was scripted and how much of it was also a bit of ad-lib?
Probably a mix of it all. The parts where I was talking about the clothing, all scripted. See my little handy note cards right there? I had them there. I also had that script in the prompter. Okay. But as Jean and I were talking back and forth, because a lot of what Youn Me This Morning is, which is fantastic, and what I think connects with our audience, is that it is so, a lot of it's ad-lib, you know, and a lot of it's just relating to real people. That's what our show says, real women, real Chicago, real fun. And that is so true. We hold true to that on the show.
Now we had Rick DeMaio here Monday. Rick, as you know, or maybe you know, is a meteorologist who's worked for Fox and CBS. He's now teaching, but he continues to fill in at CBS too. And he was talking about the fact that meteorologists have to ad-lib. So if you